Every Jewish child is brought up and taught the basic concept of veheve don es kol ha'adam lekavschus, that we have to judge every single person favorably, lekavschus, which means that if chas v'shalom, God forbid, we see someone who does something which is not 100% correct, it looks like something which is not so proper. There are two ways how to look at it. Either we right away judge him and say, terrible, this is no good, etc. Or we go like Rabbi Levi taught us, that we look at everyone in a favorable way, that we find some kind of an excuse. Maybe he didn't know, maybe he didn't understand, or maybe something else happened. Not only that, one of the most famous stories that are brought out regarding this concept of never judge anyone not favorably is the famous story of the miser. Well, I'm sure you've heard it many times, that there was this town where there was a person who was a very big miser, and he never gave any tzedakah. Any poor person that came to the door, he just closed the door in his face. He never gave a penny to tzedakah. One day, finally, this miser passes away, and the Rav said that the whole city should come, and they all spat on his aron, and they buried him in a corner over there in the cemetery. They treated him the way he treated people. Came the first Friday after the Levi, after this funeral, and all of a sudden there's a big line in front of the Rav's house. Who is there? All the poor people, men, women, and children. What happened? They all come running to the Rav that every Friday they go to the baker and they don't have enough money to pay. And the baker says, no problem, you pay me next week, you pay me next year, don't worry about it. They come to the fruit store, same story. They come to the meat market, same story. Everyone is giving everybody on credit, with no problem. All of a sudden, this Friday, no one is giving anybody on credit, and they can't figure out why. What happened? So the Rav says, call in the baker, call in the butcher, let's hear what's going on. Anyways, to make a long story short, they call in the baker, they call in the butcher, and they say, Rav, we're sorry to disappoint everybody, but we have a secret that we were told that we're not allowed to tell anybody. This miser, he came over to the butcher, and he came over to the baker, and to the fruit store, and to everyone. And he told them each one, look, you can make a lot of business. You make sure that every single person that comes into the store, even if they're very poor, and you know they're not going to pay, I will pay for their bill. And this way, you sell a lot of stuff. But with one condition. If you ever give out the secret, I'm going to stop. I don't want you to tell anybody. So it turned out that this miser that everybody hated, he was the biggest baltzduck in the whole town. And from here we see so clearly the concept of a heve don es kol ha'adam lekavschus. Every single person, makes no difference who he is. It makes no difference what he did. We have to always judge him favorably. Until, of course, if we take him and go to a bezdin, etc., but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about under normal circumstances, when you see somebody that does something, you have to judge him favorably. And of course, the Rav and all the people went to the cemetery and they asked for mechila and for forgiveness, etc., etc. When we come to our Parshas Noach, as you say in Yiddish, it's a himmel geshrei. There is a concept over here in our Parsha. The Torah says that Noach was a tzaddik, Noach ish tzaddik. All of a sudden, we start looking at the Mefarshim and the Gemara and Rashi and the Zohar. All of a sudden, everybody is talking seemingly not favorably on Noach. And this doesn't make any sense at all. And when we look at Mefarshim, we don't find an answer to this question. Let's see where it is. Let's go directly into our curriculum, go to source number 1. And this is a Sicha in Lekute Sichas Garelik Chaf Hey, volume 25, pages 19 through 22. So let's go to our sources over here. Source number 1, in the beginning of the Parsha, what's the first pasuk? Eile toildos Noach. These are the children of Noach. Noach ish tzaddik. Noach was a great tzaddik. Tamim hayo b'derosav. He was a very complete person in his generations. Es ha'elokim misalech Noach. Noach walked in the ways of the Eibishter of God. What does Rashi say? The pasuk says that Noach was Tamim Hayo. He was a complete person b'derosav, in his generations. What does that mean, in his generations? Says Rashi, go to source number 2. Rashi b'derosav. Yesh merabbeinu doishim oisei lishvach. There are some of our rabbeinu, our sages, that they learned this as a praise to Noach. Which means, what does it mean in his generations? That kol shekain, how much more so? She'ilu haya b'deir tzadikim, had he been in the generation of other tzadikim, haya tzadik yoser. He would have been even a greater tzaddik. In other words, compared to his generation, you can't really tell because you don't have to be such a big tzaddik to be compared to the people of his generation. But you may think that in another generation, he would have been maybe less than others because there are other big tzaddikim there in comparison. Says Rashi, had he been in another generation of tzaddikim, he would have been even greater. That's one opinion. Comes Rashi and brings a second opinion. V'yesh, however, there are shedoirshim oisa lignai. There are some that learn this pasuk to mean in the disgrace of Noach, in the shame of Noach. Lefi doiroi haya tzaddik. Yeah, according to his generation, he was a big tzaddik because all the people were Rishonim. The Rebbe, he wiped out everybody. He only left Noach. But ve'ilu haya b'deira shel Avraham, had he been in the generation of Avraham, lo haya nechshav leklum, he would have been worth nothing. So we have two opinions here. One opinion says that this is a praise for Noach, that had it been in another generation, he would have been even a greater tzaddik than the other tzaddik. The other opinion is no, that this is a disgrace to Noach, it's a shame to Noach, because had he been in another generation, not with Rishonim like he was, he would have been worth nothing. When you look at this, it's mind-boggling. How can you talk like that about Noach? As we're going to see now, the question becomes even stronger. But by the way, there's another whole sikha from the Rebbe in Likutei Sichos Garelik Chaf, where the Rebbe discusses this concept. What Rashi says, that had he been in the day of Noach, he would have been nothing. What do you mean, had he been in the day of Noach? Avram was in the day of Noach. In the generation of Noach. There's a famous line that says, Avraham ben Noach keshemes Noach. Avraham was Noach. Noach is Nun Ches, the number 58. Nun Ches is 58. Avraham was 58 years old when Noach passed away, which means that Avraham was around the Noach times. What does it mean that Rashi says that had he been in the generation of Noach? He was. But we're not going to get into that. That's something that Rebbe discusses in another Hosicha. Im Yirtzeh Hashem, we will do that in the near future. So, but the bottom line is, we have to understand what is Rashi saying. Goes to source number 3. There's a clear Mishnah that we mentioned before. In Perik Aleph Mishnah Vav, what does the Mishnah say? Ve'hevedon es kol ha'odom lekafskos. You have to judge every single person favorably. So the question is, how is it that we have yesh dershim lishmach ve'yesh dershim the other way? How is that possible? The question is even stronger. When we go to the Gemara, the question becomes even greater. Go to source number 4. There's a Gemara in Psachim. The Gemara says in Psachim Daf Gimel Amud Aleph, Ve'amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi. And Rabbi Shua ben Levi said as follows: Le'olam al yotzi adam davar megune mipiv. A person should never use a not nice expression. Should not use any negative expression. Why? Where do we see that you're not supposed to use negative? Says the Gemara, Shehari ikem hakasuv shmoine oisius. The pasuk distorted, he is slanted 8 letters. The pasuk used extra 8 letters, went out of its way not to say something negative. Where do we see? V'loi haitzi davar megun mifiv. And the Torah will not use a negative expression. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, in our parsha, in Parshas Noach, when Noach brought in the animals into the teva, into the ark, so he had to bring kosher animals and non-kosher animals, or an expression of the Torah, tahor or tamei, pure and impure. So what does it say in the Torah? It says, Mina behema ha-tehoira. It says, from the behema which was tahor, from the animals that were pure, umin ha-behema, and from the animals, asher eineno tehoira, which is not pure. And the Gemara explains that it could have just said, umin ha-behema ha-tmeya, from the behema that is tamei, that is not pure, that is impure. But the Torah says, Mina behema asher eineno tehoira, which means by saying a not pure animal, the Torah added another 8 letters. So we see here clear that the pasuk goes out of its way not to use a negative language. And where is this pasuk? In Parshas Noach. So in Parshas Noach, the Torah tells us you're not supposed to use something negative. In the beginning of the parasha, it tells you right away, Noach wasn't such a tzaddik as you may think, even though the pasuk says that he was a tzaddik. It just doesn't make sense. Not only that, there's another Gemara. Look at source number 5. The Gemara says in Baba Basar, page Kuf Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, 123, on the first Amud, It says the Gemara, V'hainu diksiv, and this is what it says in the pasuk later in Parsha Vayetze when it talks about our grandmother Leah. Lavan had two daughters, Leah and Rachel, and Yaakov Avinu was going to marry, and then he married Rachel and Leah. Then when the Rebbe had to give kids, what does the Torah say? The Torah says, Vayar Hashem kisnua Leah. The Rebbe saw that Leah was hated, so the Rebbe gave her a child, etc. Says the Gemara, my snua. What does it mean she was hated? Snua. Hated? How do you say something on somebody that the person is hated? Says the Gemara, if you want to tell me that she was a hated person, in the literal sense, says the Gemara, the pasuk doesn't talk in the disgrace of an animal, like we just learned before, that by a behema, the Torah will not say tamei, impure. She will say einen or tahira. Bignus tzaddikim dibrakasav. The pasuk will talk in the disgrace of a tzaddik, of a tzaddikas like Leah. How could you say she was hated? Says the Gemara, Ella, Roa Kodesh Baruch Hu, the Rebbe saw, Shesnu in Maise Esav Befanel. Not that Leah was hated. By Leah, the actions of Esav were hated by Leah. Leah hated Esav because everybody was saying that Leah, she was the older one, so she's going to marry Esav, her cousin, and Rachel is the younger one, is going to marry Yaakov. The Rebbe saw that Leah was such a big tzaddikas that she hates the actions of Esav, so the Rebbe gave her her reward. What do we see from here? That when it comes to a tzaddik, even a behema, we don't talk bad about. How much more regarding a tzaddik? Comes the question, if that's the case, what are we doing here to Noach? That there are some that are saying that had he been in the time of Abraham Avinu, he would have been a nothing, lignai, the disgrace. How can you do that? Something is missing here. Etwas stimmt nicht, as we say in Yiddish. Not only that, when we go a little deeper into the story, till now we did the Pshuta Shel Mikra, the simple pshat. Now we're going to go into the Zohar. We're going to see another unbelievable thing here. Go to source number 6. The Zohar here in Parshas Noach on page Samach Zayin Amud Beis, page 67, says the Zohar as follows. Toch hazi, come and see, ma ben Moshe l'shar bnei Alma. The difference between Moshe Rabbeinu and the other people. B'shai tadamar le'kudish baruch hu le'Moshe, when the Rebbe told Moshe Rabbeinu, when the Yidden did the golden calf, what does the Rebbe say to Moshe Rabbeinu in Parsha Kisisa, Perik Lamed Beis Pasuk Yud, ve'ato hanicholi, now leave me alone, I'm going to kill all the Yidden, ve'ese oischo le'goy godel, I'm going to make you into a big nation. As soon as Moshe Rabbeinu heard such a thing, that the Rebbe wants to get rid of the Yidden and make him into the Jewish nation, Miyad Amar Moshe, right away said Moshe Rabbeinu, V'chiesh be'gdin d'Yisrael begini. How can I just leave the Jews being judged like that? Because of me. Hashto yemrun kolin bnei Alma. What are all the people in the world going to say? They are no katlis lohein le'Yisrael. That I'm the one who killed the Yidden. Kemo David Noach. Just like Noach did. The kiv and the amar leikudshe brichu. As soon as the Rebbe told him, that the Rebbe is going to save him in the ark, like it says, the ksiv, it says in the pasuk in Parshas Noach, vani hineni mevies mabul mayim. The Rebbe told Noach that I'm going to bring a flood. And what does it say right after that? Uksiv, and it says, umachis yes kol hayikum asher asis al pnei adamim. And I am going to wipe out everyone who's on earth. And I'm going to make a covenant with you, with Noach. And you're going to come into the Teva. What does that mean? That the Rebbe is going to wipe up the world, and the only one who's going to remain is Noach. What was his reaction? Says the Zohar, the moment he told Noach, the Rebbe told Noach that he's going to be saved, he didn't ask, he didn't pray for the rest of the people in the world. And what happened to everybody? They got finished. And because Noach did not daven for the people, this flood is called Mei Noach, the waters of Noach, as if it's sort of his fault. Like it says in Yeshaya, Perik Nun Dalet Pasuk Tes, Ki Mei Noach Zois Li Asher Nishbatim Aver Men Noach. That these are called the waters of Noach. Amar Moshe, therefore Moshe Rabbeinu said to himself, Hashto Yemru Bnei Almo. Now the people are going to talk about me the same way. That I killed all the Yidden. Why? Begin to Amarli, because the Rebbe told me that he's going to wipe out the Yidden and he's going to make me into the big nation. Hashto Tavli de Emus Velishtatun Yisrael. It's better for me that I should die and the Yidden should not be wiped out, because the whole reason why the Rebbe was ready to wipe out the Yidden, because he has a Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu said, the moment there's no Moshe Rabbeinu, forget it. Miyad, by Chal Moshe B'nei Hashem Elikov, Moshe Rabbeinu davened for the Yidden, Ba'arach min alayu, he davened for the Yidden, and ve'asarach mi alalma. And the Rebbe had Rachmanis on everybody. So what do we see over here from the Zohar? That Noach was not like Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu davened for the Yidden. Noach didn't daven for the Yidden. This is the introduction that the Zohar says over here about Noach. Then the Zohar continues on the next page. Go to source number 7. We have a machlokes. Is this good or bad what Noach did? Is this to his praise or disgrace what he did? Let's look in the Zohar. Source number 7. Zohar on page Samach Esamad Aleph. Rabbi Yehuda said, Rabbi Yehuda, even though Noach was Takat Tzadik, was a very righteous person, he was not worth it that the Rebbe to save the world on his behalf. Let's give a look and see. Moshe, now the Zohar is really going to explain what happened over here. Why Noach Taka didn't daven. Says Rabbi Yehuda, Moshe loitolo milo bizchusei, elo bizchus avohim kadmoi. When Moshe Rabbeinu davened for the Eibishter, what did he say? He just davened stamazei about the Yidden? No. He said, Zchor Avrom, Ol Yitzchak, Ol Yaakov. He said, Eibishter, remember, there's Avrom, Yitzchak, Yaakov, you promised them all kinds of things, etc. Which means that Moshe Rabbeinu had who to hang on to when he davened. He didn't daven for himself. He davened b'schus Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, because his grandparents, Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, the Rebbe gave him all kinds of promises for their grandchildren. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu had what to say. What was Noach supposed to say? Remember what? The Rebbe made a promise to anybody? Nothing. So Noach had no choice. So that's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Rabbi Yehuda says it's not the pshat. Noach didn't daven because he didn't want to daven for the people. He didn't have what to say. Moshe Rabbeinu had what to say. He said, Zchor Avram. He said, remember Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Mashenkin, Noach, he couldn't have said anything. Comes another opinion in the Zohar. They're almost like Rashi. They're the one that praises and the one that disgraces. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, comes Rabbi Yitzchak and says, he didn't have what to daven for. Ve'im kolda, still and all. Kiven de Amar likucha brichu. The moment the Rebbe told him, that I'm going to make up my covenant with you, which means that there is a little door here that the Rebbe is not just going to wipe out everybody. He's still leaving Noach. He should have davened for all the people. He still should have davened. Not only that, and the korbanos, after he came out of the teva, after he came out of the ark, remember, after he came out of the teva, he brought korbanos to the Eibishter. He brought sacrifices. Says the Zohar, and the korbanos, the sacrifices that he brought, he should have brought these before he went into the teva. Maybe the anger of the Eibishter will cool down if he would have brought those korbanos. But Noach brought those korbanos after he came out of the teva. Says Rabbi Yitzchak, nah, this is not very good. This is not a very good example that we get from Noach. Rabbi Yehuda goes back to Rabbi Yitzchak and says, wait a minute. What did you want him to do? What should he have done? By Moshe Rabbeinu, he's dealing with Yidden, and the Yidden are going to do tshuva, etc. But by Noach, what should he have done? The people are all Rishoyim, and he's going to bring Karbonis and ask the Eibishter to forgive. What? We're dealing with Rishoyim, we're dealing with wicked people. Moshe Rabbeinu was dealing with Yidden, but Noach was dealing with the worst of the worst. Therefore, it finishes Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yehuda, Elavada Noach dochil agar mehave. Noach was worried for himself. Begin that he shouldn't die like all the other Rishoyim. that he saw that every single day they're getting worse and worse. How they are making the Eibishter angry every single day. So we see over here that the Zohar brings also a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yehuda says you cannot blame Noach. You cannot blame him. He tried his best, but what could he do? Moshe Rabbeinu is dealing with Yidden. He knows that there's going to be something which is called tshuva. We'll be able to come back. What's he going to do with a whole bunch of goyim who are totally not interested in the Eibush, that there's nothing to discuss? Comes Rabbi Yitzchak and says he still should have tried. So we really need to understand, why is Rabbi Yehuda praising Noach and Rabbi Yitzchak sort of shaming Noach, saying that Noach wasn't good? So we have an interesting Likutei Levi Yitzchak. The Rebbe's father, as we remember, we discussed many times, he was a big Kabbalist. And he took a lot of the things in the Zohar and tried to explain it. And he says as follows, look at source number 8, Likutei Levi Yitzchak and Zohar in Parshas Bereshis, page Lamed, says follows. Why is Rabbi Yehuda speaking in the merit of Noach? Rabbi Yehuda mehapech b'schus de Noach. Rabbi Yehuda speaks in the schus, in the merit of Noach. Rabbi Yitzchak behepech, shemehapech b'chevase. Mashenke Rabbi Yehuda, he says no. He says the opposite of the positive on Noach. Why? Each one over there discusses it according to their status, according to their madrege. What does that mean? Rabbi Yehuda hu b'chinas chesed. Rabbi Yehuda comes from the level of chesed, kindness. Rabbi Yitzchak hu b'chinas gvura. Rabbi Yitzchak is from the level of gvura, of heart, strong. So therefore, umitchilu das Rabbi Yitzchak, b'chakach das Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore first it brings the Rabbi Yitzchak and that's Rabbi Yehuda. He goes into the whole thing that this is chesed, this is gvura. But we still need to understand that this doesn't answer the question. Even a person like Rabbi Yitzchak who is gvura, he also learned the Mishnah. He also learned this Mishnah that you have to favor each person. You have to judge each person favorably. So if Rabbi Yehuda is trying his best to show how Noach was correct for what he did, why? Because he didn't have the same opportunity as Moshe Rabbeinu. What's pushing Rabbi Yitzchak to say no? He still should have done it, and he should have brought the korbanos before. And even after Rabbi Yehuda told him, what kind of korbanos is he going to bring? He still sticks to his guns. Why? Why is there this other man de Omar that's going against Noach? It just doesn't make sense. Now, by the way, there's another whole sikha from the Rebbe in Likutei Sichos Chelik Lamed Hey regarding this whole Zohar here. But we're not going to, because over here the Zohar discusses that which generations are we talking about with Noach, Avram, David. It's a very, very interesting conversation, but that's a total other issue. We're going now to discuss just one point. How is it possible that there is an opinion, and it's brought in Rashi, it's brought in the Zohar, talking not favorably of Noach, when the Torah says clearly, Noach ish tzaddik. In order to understand that, we have to go to another question. We said before in source number 4 that the Torah goes out of its way not to say a negative word. Therefore, the non-kosher animals, when they went into the Torah, it says, Asher eineno tehoira, the animal which is not tahir, instead of using the word tamei. This Gemara makes no sense. Do we ever have the word tamei in the Gemara? Tameya? Plenty of times. What are you telling me? That we don't have the word tamei, tameya? The Torah goes out of its way and it says extra letters not to say the word tamei and tameya. Going to Parsha Achrei, going to all the places where it talks about the kosher animals, non-kosher animals, it says clear, hatamei, hatmeya. What do you mean that the Torah went out of its way? What does this mean? So the answer is, look in source number 9. There's a beautiful sikh in Likutei Sichos Chelik Hey on page 281, and the Rebbe explains it beautifully what the difference is. When does the Torah use a not clear expression? In other words, better say not tahir than saying tamei. Or when does the Torah say tamei? When is that? Let's look in source number 9, look at the Sichos. Wetten das verstehen behegdim. We will understand it by saying as follows. As der klal von ike makosov, this general rule that the pasuk uses extra words, bichdei nid sagen ken davar meguna, in order not to say, God forbid, something negative, is a snor in sipurim von Torah. Only when the Torah is telling us a story. When the Torah says a story, over there the Torah will say not negative. not positive. We'll say not impure, not pure. Aber nicht in halachas. Now, when it comes to a halacha, when it comes to a law, when it comes to a law, the Torah will say, Tomei, clear. Was der Fall gefunden mir als bekammen ist. That's what we see very clearly in a few places in the Torah. As in Parshas Shmini, Parshas Re'eh, in all the places where it talks about kosher and non-kosher, steht der Lashon Tuma. Over there it says clearly the expression impure, unit ein toher, and not pure. Weil wie bald das dort dreht sich wegen einer Halacha, is a Halacha, darf man sagen, klar. Over there it talks about a Halacha, about a law. The Halacha has to be said clear, unequivocal. Therefore, continues the Rebbe, der Teitz von Ike Makosum is Kipshute. When the Gemara says that the Pasuk distorted the expression, it's exactly what it means. As der Inyan steht verkrimmt und verbehalten. That the issue is sort of hidden. It is not said in a very clear way. When I say that I want to have something which is not pure, I could have just said it simple, impure. No. Why? Says the Rebbe, when a halacha darf sein klar, because when it comes to a halacha, it has to be clear. In a story, it doesn't matter, but a halacha has to be clear. Pug tazevias darf sein a halacha psuka, just like halacha has to be something decisive, a clear ruling. Azay eich darf sein a halacha brura. So too the halacha has to be unequivocal and clear. Sagt man afilo adover meguna, abir soll sein a hero brura. So sometimes we may say even something which is shameful, or something which is negative, but as long as the halacha comes out very clearly. So now we can understand what's happening by us. The Torah, what did it say in source number 1? The first pasuk that we learned today. The Torah says, Noach ish tzaddik. Noach was a big tzaddik. And Tomim Hoyo, he was complete. Bedoiroisav, in his generations. Why did the Torah add in his generations? In order to tell us that there is something here. He wasn't just a regular tzaddik. He was a tzaddik in his generation. So now we have to understand what does it mean in his generations. Therefore, there's someone who says in his generations mean that compared to the people, he was a tzaddik. Could you imagine if he would have been in another generation? For sure he would have been. Comes another person and says, no, the opposite. Why did the Torah say in his generations? It should have said, just leave the word out, to tell us that if he would have been in another generation, he wouldn't have been such a big tzaddik. So the question is, wait a minute. And therefore you shouldn't learn from him. So the question is, wait a minute. Why does like we said before, why does the one who says that in his generations mean in a shameful way? Maybe the Torah is trying to say something positive about him. Why are you saying something negative? And here comes the Rebbe's answer, which is unbelievable. As usual, the Rebbe always answers that there's one word in this context that we need to analyze. Everybody reads that word in a certain way, comes the Rebbe and says, no, that's not the pshat. How does Rashi say, or the Zohar, that there are some who learn lishvach, in a praise way, and some who learn lignai, the opposite? It says, yesh doirshim lishvach, veyesh doirshim lignai. There are those who learn it, infer, in a proper way, and there are those who don't. What does this mean that they're learning? Are they learning about Noach, whether Noach was a tzaddik or not a tzaddik? Or are they learning from Noach how to be a tzaddik or not to be a tzaddik? Everybody learns pshat. Yesh doirshim l'shvach. There are those that learn about Noach, that he was a tzaddik. There are those that learn about Noach, no, that he wasn't such a tzaddik. Says the Rebbe, no. That's not what it says here. Yesh doirshim l'shvach means there are those that learn from Noach how to be a tzaddik. There are those who learn wrongfully from Noach what they shouldn't be learning. Yesh doirshim lignai. There are those that are learning from Noach the wrong thing. Let's look inside and we're going to see how beautiful this is. Look at source number 10. And look at the sichos over here in Siv Gimel. Says the Rebbe as follows. Der mechuven fun yesh doirshim oise lignai. The mechuven, the purpose, the intention of those who are learning it lignai, not in a praiseworthy way to Noach, is nicht zu erzählen, als bei Noach in die Gewinn Chisorim bepoil. Is not to tell us that Noach had a deficiency, that Noach had a imperfection, chas v'sholem. No. Nor doishim oisa lignai. This is a droshe velimud. It's a lesson lignai. They are learning it wrong. For somebody else. Zu verhitten von Achisorim v'tois by learning from Noach and chas v'sholem. They are there to protect the person from learning something wrong from Noach. There's somebody who looks at something that Noach did, and they learn from him that this is what's a tzaddik. Comes to Torah and says, no, you're learning the wrong thing from Noach. What does it mean? Everybody agrees that Noach was not at fault. Noach was in a very wrong time. Okay? He was together with Rishaim, and there was nothing he was able to do. However, der Chiluk is, what's the difference? Was is the Torah uisem mit dem Wort bedoreisav? What is the Torah trying to tell us with the word bedoreisav in his generation? Ein man de Omar sagt, one opinion says, der Schwach, that the Torah is out to praise what we could learn from this. As the Torah kommt mishabech sein Noach. The Rebbe comes and says that Noach is a praiseworthy tzaddik. And even if he would have been in other generations, he would have been the greatest tzaddik. Perfect. Now, und der zweite Mann, der Omar sagt, what does the second one say? As der Mid will the Torah bavorenen, that the Torah says bedoreisav, to caution somebody, as es soll nicht herauskommen kein Takolle, that chas v'sholem, there shouldn't be any failure in the Avodah von Ayiden, was lernt wegen Noach, in the Avodah of a Jews that is going to learn from Noach. Because a Jew can come and say, well, Noach was in the world, and he didn't daven for everybody. I'm too in the world. Who says I have to worry about the people around me? So therefore, someone may learn from Noach the wrong thing. Says the Rebbe, chas v'sholem, you shouldn't be doing that. So it's not that we're talking about Noach, we're talking about somebody who's going to learn from Noach. And the Rebbe continues, alle halten, as nit Noach is given schuldig. Was is nicht given as a größer tzaddik wie Avram. Everybody agrees that Noach wasn't at fault, that he wasn't such a big tzaddik like Avram. Nor dasige events lieb der Matzev und die größer Pchistus von sein Dor. This is because he was in such a generation that was so low. Und ilu hoya beder tzaddikim, hoya tzaddik yosef. And had it been in the generation of tzaddikim, he would have been a bigger tzaddik. Und das meint v'yesh der shemeis lignai, and this is what it means, that there are those who learn in a shameful, in a disgraceful way. Bescheiches zu Noach und Gufe. As far as Noach is concerned, it is nicht kein Inyan von Gnai v'chisoren. It is not a shameful thing that he didn't daven for the people. Why? Zayin dikin azad doir, because he was in such a generation, is nicht given shaykh as al zayin die darges atzidkes von Avram. He couldn't have been in the level of Avram. Nor Torah muss bringen, the Torah has to bring out, as the darge in Tzidkes is nicht die emes shleimus, that this level is not the correct level for someone to emulate. Be'adrabem, si da darge v'gnai be'erech zu Avram. This is a shameful level in comparison to Avram. Kedei as die Heura fu Sipor Noach sein klar. So we learn the correct thing. In other words, yesh doshim lishmach, there are those who learn from Noach. That you don't look at the generation around you and you still always try to be on the top of the best. Beautiful. That's lishmach, that's a praiseworthy way. Unfortunately, there are those who are going to infer from the story of Noach. The Torah says he was a tzaddik and he still didn't daven for the people around him. So I'll emulate Noach, I'll still be considered a tzaddik. Says the Torah, no, that's yesh doshim lignai. That is the negative, the shameful way to learn from Noach. Noach was perfectly fine. But someone may emulate that. No, you can't do that. You're not in the same time as Noach. Where do we find such a thing that sometimes a person is a tzaddik in his generation, but the generation is as such which is not worthy for it? Look, I'll give you just one example, but there's a whole bunch of them. Look at source number 11. There's a Gemara in Sotah, Daf Mem Ches Amud Beis. One time the Chachamim were sitting in the attic of Beis Guria in Yericho. Nitno aleihem baskel min hashemayim ve'omra. Came a baskel, a voice from heaven came down and said as follows: Yesh bochem adam echad, there's a person amongst you, shera'u shetishre shchina olav, that he is worthy that the shchina should rest upon him. Ela, however, she'ein doiri ra'u lekach, the generation though is not worthy that the shchina should come down on him. Nosnu enayim behilal azoken, and they placed their eyes, they all looked up, who is this person that seemingly the Shekhinah could be on him, is Hillel HaZaken. So therefore we see that sometimes somebody could be the best person in the generation, but unfortunately the Rebbe cannot put the Shekhinah on him because the people around him are not worthy of it. So therefore we understand now very, very good that we're not talking about Noach. Noach, according to everybody, he was a tzaddik. The question is, there are two parts to Noach. There's one part of Noach, and that is that Noach did not go with the flow. He did what the Rebbe wants him to do. That is perfect. If someone emulates that from Noach, that you don't just go by the flow and you do what the Rebbe wants, beautiful. However, if somebody takes the second part of Noach and emulates from Noach that he doesn't do anything about the people, just like Noach didn't, that's lignai. That is wrong. That is not what somebody should be learning from Noach. So now we understand also the Zohar. Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yitzchak said that Rabbi Yehuda said that Noach was a tzaddik, and he couldn't have done what Moshe Rabbeinu did. Rabbi Yitzchak comes and says he still should have. We're not talking about Noach himself. We're talking about someone who wants to emulate Noach. Comes Rabbi Yitzchak and says, be careful. Don't emulate the same thing, because Noach in his time, he had that problem. You don't have that excuse. And therefore we have to see to it that when we learn from Noach, we learn the lishvach and not, God forbid, the other half. Therefore comes the Rebbe and gives the punchline. Look at source number 12. When der Far is das Rabbi Yitzchak, therefore what Rabbi Yitzchak says in Zohar, nit in stire zum klal have done is kol ha'adam lekavschos. It's not a contradiction to what the Mishnah says, judge every person favorably. Even according to Rabbi Yitzchak, it wasn't chas v'shalom something negative. Nor with the zach is an inyan shel chayva ba'andere. He is cautioning over here that to others this is going to be a failure. The Rebbe says even more, if we are not going to talk like Rabbi Yitzchak, that we're going to caution. If we are not going to come out clear and tell everybody, listen, do not do this of not praying for everybody. Chas v'shalom, you have to. But if somebody does emulate Noach in that of not praying for everybody, then we are going to make a fault on Noach. Noach was a perfect tzaddik. But if something emulates that part, which wasn't his fault, that he didn't dam for everybody else, he's putting a fault on Noach. So therefore, this, what Noach did, can cause a failure by somebody else. Therefore, on the contrary, what Rabbi Yitzchak is saying negative on Noach is actually a positive. Because what Rabbi Yitzchak is saying, do not emulate that part of Noach, so nobody's going to emulate that. So now this becomes the zchus of Noach, it becomes the praise of Noach. So now we understand everything. Everybody agrees that Noach was a great tzaddik. What are we talking about over here? We're talking about the halacha. Should we emulate Noach or not? So there's two things. If you emulate Noach, that you do not follow the flow, you do the correct thing, perfect. Yesh deishim lishvach. You're one of those who are learning it in the praiseworthy way. But if someone chas v'shalom comes and says, I'm going to emulate Noach and not care about what's going on around me, that says Rashi and Zohar and everybody, yesh deishim lignai, that this person is one of those who are learning wrong pshat, and it's in a shameful way, because everyone has to constantly do everything possible, and a person should never say, Ani is nafshi etzalti, I take care of myself, I don't have to worry about the people around me. On the contrary, every single person must always try to do as much as he can to be able to bring this world to the proper place, which is called a dira b'tachtonim. And only by this way we are going to emulate Noach. In other words, we constantly have to do more and more and more and never stop and never be happy with what we have. And then we're going to be those of Deishim Lishmach, that we're trying to reach the highest levels possible. This is one thing that we always saw by the Rebbe. The Rebbe was never satisfied with anything. Anybody who came and showed the Rebbe, wow, look what I did over here, the Rebbe would look and say, I don't understand. Why are you only doing this? Or I'm sure you remember, you saw on the Gem video one time how the heads of a very big Jewish group here in America came those who give a lot of tzedakah. And they told the Rebbe that this year they're going to give to Lubavitch $250,000. And the Rebbe looks at them and says, and you expect me to be satisfied with $250,000? And they all felt so, they said, no, of course, we would like to make it more, etc., etc. The Rebbe was never satisfied, because the Rebbe was always dershim lishvach, that we always have to get to as far as we can, never come. I remember once, this was in Tafshin Daled Mem, this was in 1984. That year, the Rebbe had already stopped taking Yechidus, private audiences. There were just a few exceptions that the Rebbe did in that year, 2 years. There were a few Rebbes from other groups, the Sadigerer and others, that came to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe would see them in the room next to his, in the Gan Eden Tachten, or sometimes in the Rebbe's room. And they would discuss, and then their conversation was printed. I remember the Sadigerer Rebbe came then. The Sadigerer Rebbe had a person who he took care of his Moisdus and of his institutions, the director of operations. And whenever he would go with the Sadigerer Rebbe somewhere, he would do his homework about where they're going. And of course, this director, you could look it all up, it's in the Sikh over there in Tafshin Daled Mem, and it was in the winter time. And he knew that the Rebbe loves koftzim. Koftzim are these booklets that come out from the yeshiva, from the kollel, where they write in their, the boys or the young men, they write their essays in Torah and Halachah, and he knew that the Rebbe liked it. So when they came with the Sadigerer Rebbe, and they're sitting there in the Yechidus, and the Rebbe spoke to the Sadigerer Rebbe for a long time. It's a very long Yechidus. And at the end, he introduced his director of operations. His name is there, everything's there. And he tells the Rebbe that the kollel, where the young men learn, they give out a kovitz. They give out a booklet of Torah every single year. And, and until now they gave already 6 or 7 came out. The Rebbe looks at him and says, what? The kollel gives out a booklet? Yeah. Once a year? He says, yeah. So the Rebbe tells him like this, listen, Achas Bashana, this concept of once a year, is a avodah for the Kohen Gadol. There's a pasuk in the Torah where it talks about the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, that he goes into Kodesh HaKadoshim, he goes Achas Bashana, he goes once a year. So the Rebbe tells him, look, Achas Bashana, once a year is avodah for the Kohen Gadol. We, the simple people, have to do it at least 3, 4, 5 times a year. So you have to see to it that at least every 2, 3 months our kovitz comes out. And I remember we were listening to it on the hookup, and we saw, he thought he's coming to the Rebbe, he's going to get some kind of praise. It doesn't work. The Rebbe is always Doirish L'Shvach. What do we learn from Noach? That you got to be always on top. You have to be the one who always does more and more and more and never stop. And when we do that, we are going to be Zeicha, that we are Doirshim L'Shvach, and we'll be Zeicha that the Rebbester will finally be Doirish L'Shvach of our generation, and he will say, okay guys, time to leave the Golus. Just like Noach, the Rebbester pulled him out from all the dungeons, and he rebuilt the world. And the Tevas Noach was, to a certain extent, an image of L'Asid Love, how it's going to be when Mashiach comes, because everybody was in there with all the people and all the animals, and it was all a dogma, a comparison to L'Asid Love. Let us marry to the Emir Hashem. Any given moment today, we will be Zeicha to go to the Geula Mitzvah Shlema, Teikef Umiyad Mamash.